hidden beneath the waves for over 300 years, lies a shipwreck so legendary it was called the Holy Grail of the sea. The San José galleon, once thought to be only a myth, is real, and what it carried is staggering. When it went down in 1708, this Spanish treasure ship sank with mountains of gold, silver, emeralds, and secrets, a fortune so vast it could bankroll empires. For centuries, the ocean kept its grip on the wreck, and the world believed its treasure was lost forever. But now, using cutting-edge technology, divers have found it, a 17 billion time capsule of wealth and mystery. And what they've uncovered on the seafloor isn't just treasure, it's a deadly secret that was never meant to be disturbed. The birth of a legend. The San José galleon, the extraordinary saga of the San José galleon, began not amidst the tumultuous waves of the Caribbean, but in the serene, mist-shrouded hills of northern Spain. Far from the pirate-infested waters where her destiny would unfold, a marvel of naval engineering was taking shape in the quiet town of Usurbil, within the renowned Maple shipyards. Here, under the meticulous guidance of master shipbuilder Pedro de Arostegui and naval architect Francisco Antonio Garrote, the San José was meticulously crafted. Each plank, each nail was a testament to the burgeoning pride and awe of those who witnessed her gradual emergence. This was no ordinary vessel, it was a formidable 64-gun, three-masted Spanish galleon conceived to command the vast oceans. A true masterpiece of its era, her design was dual-purpose. Not only was she built for the brutal realities of naval warfare, but also for an even more perilous mission, the transport of untold riches across treacherous, pirate-infested seas. Launched in 1698, the San José was an undisputed leviathan of war. She stood as one of the largest and most imposing ships in the Spanish Navy, engineered to traverse vast oceans and overpower any adversary in her path. Her hull, constructed with exceptional thickness, was designed to withstand the devastating impact of cannon fire, while her bristling gun decks, armed with an array of powerful artillery, could tear enemy ships to shreds. However, her true power, and indeed her enduring legend, lay not in her offensive capabilities, but in the immense wealth contained within her cargo hold. She was designed to carry gold, silver, and precious gems on a scale that could finance wars, destabilize entire kingdoms, and ultimately dictate the balance of power across Europe. The San José was not alone in her grandeur. She had a twin sister, the San Joaquin, built in the very same Basque shipyards. The San Joaquin shared her siblings' vital mission of ferrying colossal amounts of treasure from the burgeoning colonies of the Americas back to Spain. Often, they sailed together, forming part of the same formidable fleet. This strategic pairing offered Spain a degree of security. Should one vessel succumb to the perils of storms or enemy attacks, the other might still deliver its invaluable cargo. Yet, this very proximity introduced a new and perilous vulnerability. If one ship was sighted by hostile forces, it immediately signaled the nearby presence of its twin, effectively doubling the prize for Spain's adversaries. For England and other rival powers, the Spanish treasure fleets represented the ultimate bounty. The capture of even one of these magnificent galleons promised millions in gold, silver, and emeralds, a fortune capable of funding an entire military campaign. To seize both would be to amass wealth on an unprecedented scale, enough to shift the very tides of geopolitical power. Consequently, Spanish treasure fleets became relentless targets. English warships and opportunistic privateers perpetually patrolled the Caribbean and Atlantic sea lanes, their crews ever vigilant, awaiting the opportune moment to strike. Life aboard the San José was thus defined by an unceasing sense of peril. Below deck, conditions were notoriously harsh. The air hung thick, hot and damp, heavy with the pungent odors of sweat, salt, and human exertion. Dozens of men shared confined spaces, sleeping in tightly packed hammocks, their lives interwoven by the shared risks and cramped quarters. The work was relentless, demanding ceaseless labor, from hauling heavy ropes to repairing torn sails. every sailor lived with the constant, unsettling awareness that danger was never far removed. A sudden, ominous crack in the hull could herald the fury of a breaking storm. A distant sail on the horizon might signify an English warship poised to unleash an attack. The English, in particular, were Spain's most tenacious and determined adversaries. The reason for this intense rivalry was straightforward. Both empires were locked in a fierce, generations-long struggle for dominance over global trade routes, colonial territories, and naval supremacy. Spain, having grown immensely wealthy from its vast American possessions, embodied a monopoly that England desperately sought to shatter, aiming to claim its own substantial share of the New World's riches. This deep-seated rivalry had already ignited numerous wars, bloody sea battles, and a continuous string of maritime ambushes. For the Spanish crews, every voyage was therefore saturated with an underlying current of fear. Despite the pervasive dread, there was also an undeniable undercurrent of pride. To Spain, the San José was far more than a ship. She was a floating fortress, a potent and unmistakable symbol of imperial might. Her immense size, formidable firepower, and the incalculable value of her cargo all broadcast a clear message to allies and enemies alike. Spain commanded the seas, and her wealth was inviolable. This deep-seated national pride was instrumental in sustaining morale among the crew, even as they lived with the grim knowledge that each journey could, irrevocably, be their last. And then, on one devastating morning, that final fateful voyage arrived, the voyage of no returns, a date with destiny. In June of 1708, the San José embarked from port on what was intended to be one of the most critical voyages of her illustrious, yet ultimately tragic, career. Departing from Portobelo, Panama, the magnificent galleon was bound for Cartagena, Colombia, where she was scheduled for a brief stopover before undertaking the arduous and perilous transatlantic journey back to Spain. This was no mere resupply run. The San José was laden with one of the most astonishingly rich cargoes ever assembled in the Spanish Americas. On board lay an estimated 200 tons of pure gold, gleaming silver, and exquisite emeralds. To truly grasp the magnitude of this treasure, it is estimated that its modern-day value would reach into the billions of dollars. At the time, it was sufficient to finance an entire war or cripple a rival nation's economy. Spain desperately needed this wealth to sustain its vast empire, and its enemies were keenly aware that such immense reaches did not come without a terrible cost. Much of this treasure had been brutally extracted from the depths of mines in present-day Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru. Indigenous peoples and enslaved Africans were forced to toil under unspeakably brutal conditions, their lives sacrificed for the insatiable demand for precious metals and gems. In the notorious silver mines of Potosi, Bolivia, men were condemned to labor deep underground for months on end, breathing toxic dust that inexorably destroyed their lungs. Cave-ins were a common and horrific occurrence, crushing countless workers to death in the suffocating darkness. In Colombia's emerald mines, laborers hacked at unforgiving stone with their bare hands and rudimentary tools, their bodies breaking under the relentless strain. Enslaved Africans were often chained to their work, subjected to brutal whippings if their pace faltered, and left to perish if they collapsed from exhaustion or illness. Hunger, disease, and overwhelming fatigue were their constant, unwelcome companions. For every chest of gold or silver that was meticulously loaded onto the decks of ships like the San José, countless lives had already been extinguished in the infernal pits of the New World. What the crew of the San José tragically did not know on that fateful day was that their movements were already being meticulously tracked. Great Britain, locked in a brutal and protracted conflict with Spain during the War of the Spanish Succession, had acquired intelligence regarding the galleon's priceless cargo and her intended route. Waiting in ambush was Commodore Charles Wager, a hardened and seasoned veteran of the Royal Navy, renowned for his relentless and uncompromising pursuit of enemy vessels. Wager was not acting merely for personal glory. He embodied Britain's strategic campaign to dismantle Spanish maritime power and seize control of the very riches that fueled its vast empire. For him, the capture of the San José transcended a mere naval victory. It represented the stripping of desperately needed wealth from Spain and the delivery of an enormous, strategic prize directly into British hands. As the San José and her accompanying convoy drew near Baru Island, just south of Cartagena, Charles Wager unleashed his attack. His ships swiftly closed in from multiple directions, unleashing a torrent of cannon fire without warning. The initial volleys of cannonballs smashed into the convoy, ripping gaping holes in their hulls and violently throwing sailors from their feet. Men were brutally torn apart by flying splinters of wood, and the acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air, burning the eyes and lungs of every man on deck. The screams of the wounded echoed across the water as men burned or blot out on the splintered planks, some hurled overboard by the sheer force of the explosions. The San José, true to her reputation, retaliated with her own formidable guns, pounding Wager's ships with heavy, defiant fire. Her crew fought with desperate courage, but the British attack was meticulously coordinated, overwhelming in its intensity, and relentless in its execution. The San José, for all her inherent strength, found herself ensnared in an inescapable storm of fire. Then came the catastrophic blow that irrevocably sealed her fate. A British shot, guided by grim providence, struck the San José's powder magazine, the highly volatile storage area for her vast supply of gunpowder. It was the most devastating target a cannonball could possibly hit. In a horrifying instant, the majestic ship erupted. The ensuing explosion tore through the vessel with such immense force that it was both seen and heard miles away. Flames shot skyward into the night, and the very sea itself seemed to convulse in response. The mighty galleon was ripped apart in mere seconds, blasted into countless pieces of burning wood, twisted iron, and glittering treasure. Hundreds of men were killed instantly, their bodies, along with cargo and debris, raining down into the dark, churning waters. Out of a crew of nearly 600, a mere 11 survived to recount the harrowing, tragic tale. The San José sank with such terrifying speed that her immense and priceless cargo plummeted to the bottom with her, vanishing into the unfathomable depths. Spain had lost not only a ship and her valiant crew, but also a fortune that could have fundamentally altered the course of the ongoing war. For Britain, the victory, while significant, remained incomplete. They had successfully destroyed the San José, but the ocean had greedily swallowed her treasure whole, denying them the ultimate prize. For more than 300 years, the San José remained the ocean's most elusive ghost, her fiery demise recounted in legends, but her final resting place a profound mystery. Now, the truth has finally emerged. The wreck has been found, and what divers have uncovered is far more complex and thought-provoking than anyone could have imagined. Before this groundbreaking discovery, governments and treasure hunters engaged in decades of bitter conflict, each convinced that a fortune beyond wildest dreams lay hidden beneath the waves, awaiting their claim. The failed recovery mission's a centuries-long legal battle in 1981, more than 2.5 centuries after the San José's fiery descent beneath the waves. The profound silence surrounding her watery grave was abruptly shattered. A U.S.-based salvage company, Sea Search Armada S.A., made a sensational announcement. They claimed to have precisely located the legendary wreck off the coast of Cartagena, Colombia. The company asserted that they possessed precise coordinates and undeniable proof that this was no ordinary shipwreck, but indeed the very galleon fabled to carry one of history's greatest treasures. Initially, the world erupted with a fever pitch of excitement. If their claims proved true, the discovery promised access to billions in lost gold, silver, and emeralds. Newspapers sensationally declared that the Holy Grail of shipwrecks had finally been unearthed. Investors and governments across the globe watched with bated breath, anticipating a historic recovery effort. However, the celebrations proved to be as fleeting as they were fervent, ending almost as swiftly as they had begun. Almost immediately, SSA found itself embroiled in a bitter and protracted legal war with the Colombian government. Officials vehemently argued that the wreck lay unequivocally within Colombian territorial waters, which, by international law, meant that any treasure belonged to the nation itself, not to a foreign salvage firm. Spain, too, entered the fray, sternly reminding the world that the San José had been a Spanish warship, sunk in combat during the War of the Spanish Succession. If this historical fact was upheld, it rendered the wreck not merely a piece of Colombian heritage, but also, in their view, sovereign Spanish property. The dispute escalated, growing messier and more convoluted with each passing day. By 1984, Colombia unilaterally revoked SA's salvage contract entirely. The government formally declared the San José an integral part of Colombia's national cultural heritage, asserting that it could not be treated as a mere salvage site subject to plunder and commercial exploitation. For SSA, this was a crushing defeat. They had already invested millions of dollars and countless years of dedicated work into the exhaustive search. Now, they were legally barred from the very wreck they claimed to have discovered. The battle shifted from the vastness of the sea to the confines of the courtroom, where it dragged on for decades. SSA aggressively demanded half of whatever treasure was eventually recovered, insisting that the original agreement they had with Colombia remained legally valid. By modern estimates, this amounted to a staggering sum of as much as $17 billion in treasure. Colombia, however, flatly refused, maintaining that the ship and its entire cargo belonged exclusively to the state. As lawyers on both sides fiercely contended in multiple international courts, the San José remained undisturbed, a silent testament to history. On the seafloor, in 2007, growing weary of the seemingly endless legal wrangling, Colombia resolved to act independently. The government launched a national expedition with the explicit aim of recovering the San José entirely without SSA's involvement. Hopes soared that modern equipment and advanced technology would finally succeed where earlier attempts had faltered. But once again, the mission encountered formidable obstacles. The wreck lay at an astounding depth of more than 600 meters, almost 2,000 feet. At that time, very few recovery teams globally possessed the specialized technology capable of operating safely and effectively at such extreme depths. Even for those rare few who did, the logistical challenges and exorbitant costs were simply staggering. Another crucial issue added an even greater layer of delicacy to the project. Preservation experts issued dire warnings that attempting to raise a centuries-old galleon from such immense depths could result in its instantaneous and catastrophic destruction. The San José, they emphasized, was not merely a container for treasure, it was a profoundly significant historical site. International organizations, prominently including UNESCO, urgently implored Colombia to cease treating the wreck as a mere gold mine, and instead to embrace its true identity as an invaluable underwater cultural sanctuary. A reckless or ill-conceived salvage attempt, they warned, could shatter priceless artifacts and irreversibly erase invaluable historical data before archaeologists had any chance to study it. Caught between complex legal disputes, fervent national pride, intense international pressure, and the harsh, unforgiving limits of deep sea engineering, Colombia's ambitious efforts stalled. The San José remained precisely where she had tragically fallen in 1708, locked in time, unreachable, and tantalizingly out of grasp. For decades following its initial rediscovery, the world's richest shipwreck remained shrouded in darkness at the bottom of the sea, fiercely contested in courtrooms but never physically touched. All anyone could do was patiently wait. That profound silence stretched on for nearly a decade, until a truly stunning discovery in 2015 utterly transformed everything. The 2015 discovery, a glimmer of truth after decades characterized by whispered rumors, contentious lawsuits, and a series of ultimately failed expeditions, the Colombian Navy finally delivered an official confirmation of the exact location of the San José. While Sea Search Armada had claimed its discovery back in the 1980s, their provided evidence consisted only of rough coordinates, lacking the definitive, precise proof required for absolute certainty. However, in 2015, utilizing state-of-the-art sonar mapping and sophisticated, remotely operated vehicles (ROVs), Colombia's dedicated team captured incredibly clear, irrefutable images of the wreck. It lay approximately 12 nautical miles off the coast of Cartagena, more than 600 meters below the ocean surface. What appeared on the high-resolution screens utterly stunned even the most seasoned marine experts. There, nestled in the perpetual darkness of the deep, lay the ship's intact cannons and a substantial section of its hull, still remarkably recognizable after more than 300 years beneath the waves. The ROV meticulously scanned the wreck, and the evidence that streamed back was overwhelming. Unique identifying features of the ship's construction, particularly its bronze cannons, meticulously engraved with intricate dolphin motifs, the distinctive shape of its hull, and the precise layout of its artillery, all perfectly matched historical records. There was no longer any room for doubt. They had unequivocally found the San José. News of the discovery sparked renewed interest and controversy. A fierce battle over the sunken shipwreck, submerged for more than 3 centuries, erupted anew. Analysts confirmed the identity of the sunken Spanish galleon, the San José, universally recognized as the world's richest shipwreck. Yet, even with its precise location finally confirmed, the colossal treasure remained exactly where it was. Recovery efforts did not commence, not in 2015, not in 2016, and not for several years thereafter. Why? Because the underlying problems that had plagued previous attempts had not simply vanished, they had, in fact, only intensified. Spain immediately reasserted its claim to the wreck, declaring the San José a Spanish naval vessel that, under international maritime law, should be returned to its nation of origin. And compounding the renewed legal skirmish was the sheer, daunting technical challenge. Successfully raising a wreck from 600 meters deep, intact, and without causing irreparable damage, would undoubtedly constitute one of the most delicate, expensive, and historically significant maritime operations ever attempted. Thus, the wreck once again remained untouched, a silent testament to history, waiting patiently for a resolution that seemed perpetually out of reach. Then, in 2023, a significant shift in circumstances finally occurred. Secrets in the Deep, a wreck frozen in time. In 2023, a dedicated new team, comprising personnel from the Colombian Navy working in close collaboration with marine archaeologists and engineers from the prestigious Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, returned to the hallowed site of the San José. Stories of ships brimming with treasure from bygone eras often fail to live up to their heightened legends. However, as journalist Wendy Urquhart reported, this true account of a Spanish galleon laden with real, tangible treasure, now valued in the billions, was truly exceptional. Unlike earlier expeditions that relied solely on rudimentary sonar scans, this advanced mission deployed cutting-edge, high-resolution cameras and sophisticated mapping systems capable of capturing every minute detail of the wreck. The technology available was vastly superior to anything that had existed even a decade prior. The robotic submersible meticulously descended to the abyssal seafloor, transmitting astonishingly clear images in real time. What these images revealed did not merely confirm the wreck's identity, they far exceeded all expectations. A massive section of the stern, measuring approximately 25 meters, remained astonishingly intact. The wooden planks, despite being centuries old, were remarkably well preserved, shielded from decay by the cold, oxygen-poor depths. Dozens of bronze cannons rested precisely as they had fallen when the ship sank. Many were still aimed outward, eerily frozen in the very act of defending the ship during her final, desperate battle. Several cannons bore distinct markings, including intricate inscriptions from the Royal Artillery Factory of Seville. These crucial markings confirmed they were forged during the reign of King Charles VII of Spain, eliminating any lingering doubt that this was, without question, the San José. Surrounding the remarkably preserved wreck were smaller, yet equally telling, artifacts. Ceramic storage jars lay scattered across the seabed, some astonishingly still sealed after more than 300 years. Glass bottles were recovered with their original contents miraculously preserved inside. There were cooking utensils, robust copper cauldrons, and even grinding stones from the ship's galley. Even the bricks of the massive oven, where food for nearly 600 men had once been prepared, were still remarkably in place and clearly visible. These seemingly mundane, everyday objects offered an unparalleled, direct glimpse into the lives of the crew who had sailed the San José, providing a poignant human connection to the distant past. As the robotic cameras ventured deeper into the wreck, the discoveries became even more extraordinary, revealing, amidst the remnants of daily life, the clear, glittering proof of the San José's fabled treasure. The treasure, more than just gold. When the remotely operated vehicles first transmitted images of the San José's legendary treasure, the research team was overcome with disbelief. Video screens lit up with the brilliant gleam of gold coins, scattered across the sandy seabed as though they had been dropped only yesterday. Thick silver bars were piled in unnaturally ordered stacks, appearing almost deliberately placed. Solid ingots of precious metal, untouched for centuries, reflected the submersible's lights with an ethereal glow. For several long, silent moments, no one in the control room spoke, mesmerized by the sheer scale of the discovery. Yet, the profound shock extended beyond the mere quantity of treasure. What most unsettled the team was the peculiar, seemingly haphazard arrangement of the valuables.